Today's devotion is called Windows, the Ark, and Rivers. And we're starting on another book. Today's the start of Joshua, and we're on day 186, and we're on July the 5th. So today's morning rinse is to read Joshua 1 through 5. And I've got several verses in here that I'm going to be featuring. And those featured verses include Joshua 2:17 through 18 and Joshua 3:17. The men said to her, "We shall be free from this oath to you, which you have made us swear, unless when we come into the land, you tie this cord of scarlet thread in the window through which you let us down, and gather for yourselves into the house your father and your mother and your brothers and all your father's household." And the priests who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on dry ground until all the nation had finished crossing the Jordan. This is the story of Rahab. Rahab's story has been another story, just like yesterday's story about Jonah. Today's story has also been repeated to generations and generations, to all ages alike. And it is the perfect story of how God will use us to be a part of his plan of salvation, so long as we are willing and have faith to act in our willingness. When Joshua took on the role of the new leader succeeding Moses, God told him 3 times to be courageous. He told him that in chapter 1, verse 6, chapter 1, verse 7, and chapter 1, verse 9. And he commissioned Joshua for what was ahead, commanding him to have faith. And Joshua then prepared the people to take the promised land, and then he sent spies into Jericho to bring back a report. Rahab gave these spies room and board while they were in the city, and he hid them when the king's officials came looking for them. And then she helped them escape by using a rope to climb out of her window and down the city wall so that they could run back to Joshua. This same window was the window that she tied the scarlet thread to, which saved herself and her family during the battle that was soon to come. And when the spies made it back to the Israelites' camp and they spoke to Joshua of their findings, Joshua immediately began making plans to cross over the Jordan River to capture the city. He and all the sons of Israel set out that following morning, leading the people towards this new land. And as they marched, the Ark of the Covenant was carried before them, like in the front, and displaying God's presence and God's power. And once the people reached the Jordan River, the priests who carried the ark touched the water in faith, and then the waters were pushed back like a dam, much like when Moses parted the Red Sea. Did you know that this happened twice? Just side note, because oftentimes we focus on Moses and leading the people into the promised land that way, or out of Egypt, but we often forget this other time that it happened. Well, anyway, this allowed the people to cross over the water safely for that second time, headed towards a victorious battle. Windows are not made to crawl down, and rivers are not created to walk through. Yet when we live in faith, it sparks God's power, or ark, and miracles will occur through us for the world to see. I want to urge you to carry God's presence and power every day and be strong and courageous like Joshua and Rahab. Your faith holds the key to unlock the windows to save others and to dry up rivers to be crossed over to a promised land of destiny. So today's challenge to dig deeper is to really seek God and question, like, has God spoken to you about how he wants to use you? And if he spoke to you this years and years ago and you have not fulfilled that yet, it is not too late. I mean, have you picked up the ark, which signifies his presence? And have you picked it up with courage? If you are a little nervous about fulfilling what God's asked you to do, or if you're nervous about whether or not God still even has this call of God on you, or if you're nervous about, what is it? Ask him to help you. Sometimes we can be afraid, but repent of the fear of your life in your life and look for the windows and the rivers that God needs you to think outside the box that are going to potentially save other people. That's why I called it what I called it today: windows, the ark, and rivers. And notice how I put the ark in the middle of my title: windows, the ark, rivers. The ark should be the center of everything, and that ark is representative of God's presence. And he uses things that are not necessarily what they're made for. Rivers are not made to walk through and be dried up and to cross over that way. And windows are not made to let people down and, save a whole nation or win a battle or save a family or whatever. Those things are just unique things that we would have never thought that God could use in such a dynamic way. But that's how God speaks. He speaks to us and shows us opportunities that we might not have ever even thought we had. So that's what I want you to write down today and reflect on is, did God speak to you regarding some opportunities that he has for you that maybe you thought were dead, or maybe that you aren't necessarily for sure you have full faith to believe that God still has that call in your life? But what did he talk to you about regarding opportunities for you? And are you committed to being courageous, to walk and do the steps that you need to do to fulfill and open up those opportunities that God's talking to you about? And mind you, oftentimes we want those opportunities to be open to us like immediately, and we want that right now. But the reality of it is, the courageous part is to continue to walk through and do the things that God asks you to do, whether it takes a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade. And understanding that God still wants to use us in those capacities with those opportunities. So I encourage you to remain inspired. And I hope that this story inspired you to see how God uses us, and how that people in this story were courageous and God used them. So I hope today inspired you. I love the book of Joshua. And as we continue to read the book of Joshua, I hope that there are some nuggets there that God's going to use to inspire you and to keep you going and to show you how he wants you to be used in his kingdom. And until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating.